Everyone loves a good story, like King Arthur leading his knights, Robin Hood stealing from the rich, or Mulan disguising herself to save China. These are stories we've heard for generations. But what if I told you these legendary figures, who've shaped countless films, books, and even entire cultural movements, might never have existed? You might be wondering, but who made these stories up, and why do we still believe in them? Well, in today's video, we'll uncover 10 famous figures that, despite their fame, are likely nothing more than products of storytelling. So, stay tuned to discover the surprising truth behind these legendary names. You might be shocked by what you learn. Welcome to Mysteries Debunked. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to keep up with more exciting history debunking. Now, let's get started. 10. King Arthur, the legendary ruler of Camelot. Let's start with one of the most iconic figures in mythology, King Arthur. His name immediately brings to mind the Round Table, Excalibur, and the legendary kingdom of Camelot. But here's the kicker. There's no solid evidence that he ever existed. Some historians suggest that Arthur might have been based on a 5th or 6th century warrior who defended Britain from invaders. But the Arthur we know today? He's more of a literary invention than a real-life king. The stories we associate with King Arthur were first written down in the 9th century, but they were built on much older Welsh and Breton folklore. Over the centuries, these tales grew into the grand legends we now know. Is Arthur real? Maybe. But the larger-than-life version we admire? That's all legend. 9. Robin Hood, the outlaw hero. Next up, Robin Hood. He's the hero we all root for, the man who stole from the rich and gave to the poor. But was Robin Hood a real person? As it turns out, probably not. While there are medieval records of outlaws with similar names like Robhod or Robert Hood, there's no conclusive proof that they were the inspiration for the legend. In fact, Robin Hood's story likely evolved from a variety of different folktales about outlaws in medieval England. Over time, writers and storytellers added more elements to the character, turning him into the merry outlaw we know today. 8. Homer, the ancient poet. Homer is credited with writing 2 of the most famous epics in human history, the Iliad and the Odyssey. But there's a twist. Many scholars today believe that Homer never existed as a single individual. These epics were likely passed down through oral tradition over centuries before finally being written down. The name Homer may have simply been invented to give a face to these epic works. While the stories of Achilles and Odysseus are timeless, the man behind them is likely a construct of collective memory rather than an actual historical figure. 7. Sun Tzu, the master of strategy. Sun Tzu's The Art of War is one of the most influential military texts in history. But did Sun Tzu himself ever walk the earth? Scholars are divided. While the book is real and dates back to the 5th century BCE, there's no concrete evidence to prove Sun Tzu existed. But whether he was real or not, his teachings on strategy and warfare have shaped the world for millennia. 6. Mulan, the brave warrior. We all know the story of Mulan, the brave woman who disguised herself as a man to fight for China in her father's place. Her tale is inspiring, but historians agree that there's no historical evidence that Mulan actually existed. Her story likely originated in Chinese folktales from the 5th century. Though her character is fictional, Mulan's impact is very real, especially in modern pop culture, thanks to Disney's adaptations. 5. William Tell, the Swiss marksman. William Tell's story is one of defiance and bravery. According to legend, Tell shot an apple off his son's head and sparked a rebellion against Austrian rule in Switzerland. But is there any truth to this story? Most historians believe not. Tell's tale first appeared in the 15th century, more than 100 years after the events were said to have taken place. 4. Betty Crocker, the kitchen. Icon Betty Crocker is a beloved name in American kitchens, but she was never a real person. In the 1920s, General Mills invented the persona to respond to customer baking questions. They created a friendly, relatable figure to represent their brand, and over time, Betty Crocker became an icon in her own right. Betty Crocker is entirely fictional, a marketing creation that took on a life of its own. 3. Pythagoras, the mathematical genius. Pythagoras is famous for his theorem, but the man behind the math might be more of a legend than a historical figure. There are no writings directly from Pythagoras, and most accounts of his life were written long after his death. The mathematical principles attributed to him may have been known long before his time, possibly originating with the Egyptians. So, while Pythagoras' name lives on, the man himself remains a bit of a mystery. 2. John Henry, the steel-driving man. John Henry is a folk hero known for his incredible strength and endurance. His legendary battle against a steam drill has been immortalized in songs, stories, and films. But did John Henry ever really exist? It's unlikely. John Henry represents the strength and determination of working-class America, but the man himself is probably fictional. 1. Pope Joan, the female pope. Finally, let's talk about Pope Joan. According to legend, she disguised herself as a man and became pope in the Middle Ages. But historical evidence for her existence is non-existent. Her story didn't appear until centuries after the events supposedly took place, and most scholars agree that she's a mythical figure. Pope Joan's tale may have been invented as a cautionary or symbolic story, but one thing is clear: there was no female pope in history. As we've seen, history is full of fascinating figures, but not all of them are rooted in fact. From the brave King Arthur to the mighty John Henry, many of the most legendary names are products of imagination, folklore, and storytelling. These figures might not have walked the earth, but their stories continue to inspire us, reminding us of the power of myth and the impact of a good tale. So, which fictional figure is your favorite? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more exciting explorations of history's mysteries. See you in the next video.